My name is Mark Burns. I'm sitting here in my small apartment in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with an old camera by my side and a cold cup of coffee on the table. I'm 29 years old, and my life, at least so far, feels like a black and white film I've been directing myself, full of beautiful moments intertwined with shadows. I work as a freelance photographer, which means I wander around capturing images of landscapes, people, and stories that no one else seems to notice. Sometimes it's a sunset over the desert, sometimes the smile of a street child. This job doesn't offer stability, but it gives me freedom, the one thing I crave more than anything else. Santa Fe is where I grew up, a city with red brick streets, ancient adobe houses, and a sky so deeply blue it makes you feel small. It's a place where art and culture blend seamlessly, but for my family it's merely a backdrop for academic achievements. My family is comfortably middle class, not ostentatiously wealthy, but secure enough to never worry about monthly bills. My father, Kenneth Burns, is a renowned university history professor, with a stack of published books and lectures that captivate his students. He always wears a suit even at home, and his voice resonates like an endless presentation. My mother, Paula Burns, is a pediatrician, known throughout the city for her dedication and vast knowledge. She saves children's lives every day, and that fills her with a pride that sometimes makes her forget life isn't just about degrees and titles. Then there's my older brother, Adam Burns, 3 years my senior, a successful lawyer at a big firm in Albuquerque. He's the family's golden child, top of his class since childhood, graduated law school with honors and now drives a sleek luxury car and wears expensive suits. Our extended family is much the same. Uncles who are engineers, aunts who are researchers, each with at least one PhD framed on their walls. They're proud, I'll admit. Not a crude arrogance, but a subtle smugness, as if the world belongs only to those with advanced degrees. At family gatherings during holidays, they boast about awards, scientific papers, and international conferences. I remember Christmas dinners where everyone sat around the table raising glasses to toast the Burns family's academic tradition. But I'm different. I've always been different, even as a child. I wasn't the kid who spent hours buried in books. Instead, I ran around outside, drew on walls, and daydreamed about adventures. In high school, I got my first camera, a gift from my grandfather, the only person in the family who understood my artistic side. He passed away when I was 16, leaving me with that passion. I didn't pursue a prestigious university like my brother. Instead, I studied photography at a community college and dove into the world of freelancing. I live freely, unburdened by degrees or titles. For me, life is about emotions, about fleeting moments you have to capture before they vanish. I don't need a fixed office or a steady paycheck. I need the freedom to chase my passion. And for that, I'm looked down upon. They call me eccentric, an outsider, words that started as jokes but gradually turned into sharp blades. At family gatherings, I'm always overshadowed. I sit there listening to everyone talk about their accomplishments, and when it's my turn, they just smirk. "Mark, what are you photographing now? A butterfly in the desert?" my uncle would say, and the whole table would burst into laughter. I try to share about my latest project, maybe a photo series about the lives of Navajo people, but they quickly steer the conversation back to my mother's latest research or Adam's big case. I vividly remember my father's birthday party a few years ago. The house was packed with relatives, red wine filled every glass, and the air buzzed with stories of success. My father stood up, raising his glass. "I'm proud of our family, of the academic tradition we've upheld. Adam, my son, just won a major case. Paula, my wife, remains the finest doctor, and Mark, you're still taking photos, right?" The room went silent for a second, then erupted in laughter. Adam patted my shoulder, but his smile was laced with mockery. "What's the future in freelancing, Mark? Living off luck, no stable career? You should rethink things, go back and get a proper degree." My mother nodded, adding, "Sweetheart, I'm worried about you. Life isn't about daydreaming. Look at your brother and learn." I stayed silent, as always. I clenched my jaw, swallowed the pain, and focused on my work. But that pain festers, building up day by day. It's like an unhealed wound, bleeding a little every time I come home. I started avoiding family gatherings, making excuses about being busy with projects. But my parents still call, still remind me, "Mark, you need stability, don't disappoint the family." Disappoint? I wonder, disappoint because I'm not like them? Because I chose my own path? My freelance life isn't easy. Some months I earn enough to live comfortably, selling photos to magazines or exhibitions. But other times I'm scraping by, eating instant noodles and hoping for the next project. I remember once getting an offer to shoot for a documentary about the environment. It was a big opportunity, and I excitedly told my family over the phone. My father just grunted, "Freelancing, huh? All luck and chance. If you had a proper degree, things would be different." Those words cut like a knife, making me doubt myself. I drove out to the desert, shooting photos late into the night, trying to chase away the pain. But deep down, I know it's growing, like a storm about to break. And that storm, it turned out, brought a new breeze, one named Natalie. It was a fall morning when golden leaves began drifting down onto the red dirt roads on the outskirts of Santa Fe. I had landed a small project, photographing and filming rural life in New Mexico's countryside, about 2 hours' drive from the city. It wasn't a grand job, just for a local magazine aiming to celebrate the beauty of old farms. I thought, why not? At the very least, it was a chance to escape my stifling apartment and the endless calls from my family. I loaded my gear into my beat-up pickup truck, camera, tripod, a few spare rolls of film, and hit the road, my heart a mix of excitement and exhaustion. The road to the countryside wound through fields of ripe corn, with herds of cattle grazing lazily under the gentle sun. The air was fresh, a stark contrast to Santa Fe's bustle. I pulled over at a small farm where the owner, an old man named Hank, greeted me with a gap-toothed smile and a glass of homemade lemonade. "Shoot whatever you want as long as it honors life out here," he said warmly. I wandered the farm, capturing photos of dawn over the fields, farmers plowing and chickens running free. These were simple moments, but they made me feel more alive than ever. No pressure from degrees or titles, just me and the world through my lens. Then, on the afternoon of the second day, as I was filming by a small creek, I heard laughter echoing from a distance. It was a group of local young people having a picnic. I instinctively turned my camera toward them, not with any purpose, just following my gut. And that's when I saw her, Natalie. She was in a wheelchair, her long brown hair flowing in the breeze, her smile as radiant as the autumn sun. She was young, about 25, with sparkling green eyes and sun-kissed skin from a life spent outdoors. Despite being paralyzed from the waist down, she maneuvered her wheelchair with grace, joining her friends in a game of catch without hesitation. I stopped filming and just stood there watching, my heart racing in a strange way. There was something about her, her optimism shining through every gesture, that drew me in instantly. I hadn't planned to approach her, but Hank introduced us. "This is Natalie Jameson, Clifford's daughter from the farm across the creek. She's the joy of this whole village," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Natalie turned to me, smiling. "Hey, photographer. Filming us, huh? Hope you don't make us look bad." Her voice was soft, laced with humor, and I laughed, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. We exchanged a few words about the weather, the fields, and then the conversation deepened. She spoke about life in the countryside, growing up in a farming family, helping her parents pick corn as a child, and how, despite a car accident 3 years ago that left her paralyzed, she never stopped dreaming. "Life's like these fields," she said, gesturing around her. "Sometimes it's dry, but the rain always comes." I still believe that. I was captivated by her spirit. It wasn't her looks, though she was naturally beautiful, but her inner strength. Natalie's optimism was infectious, her warmth touched everyone around her, and her resilience made me question why I ever complained about my freelance life. We talked for hours, losing track of time. I shared stories about my work, my travels, and she listened, her eyes lighting up. "That sounds amazing. I've always dreamed of wandering like you, but now this wheelchair's my ride." I felt a pang of sadness, but she brushed it off with a laugh. "Don't worry, I'm used to it. It's made me stronger." The next day, I returned to her family's farm to take more photos. Natalie's family lived simply. Her father, Clifford Jameson, was a tall, weathered farmer tanned by the sun and wind. Her mother, Marilyn Jameson, was a gentle woman who baked homemade bread. They welcomed me like family, inviting me for lunch with fresh garden salad and grilled meat. Natalie wheeled herself out to the yard, pointing out the best spots to shoot. We sat under an ancient oak tree, sharing stories. I opened up about my family, their arrogance, and the pain of being looked down upon. She took my hand. "You're different, and that's wonderful. Don't let them make you doubt yourself." Her words were like a cool stream, soothing the storm inside me. From then on, we saw each other more often. The project lasted a week, but I found excuses to stay longer. We went for walks. I pushed her wheelchair along the dirt paths and talked about our dreams. Natalie wanted to become a teacher, to teach rural kids about art, even though her legs limited her mobility. "I'll find a way," she said, her voice resolute. I was completely drawn to her. It wasn't love at first sight. It grew slowly, like roots sinking deep into the earth. In her, I found the sincerity my family lacked. Our first kiss happened at sunset beside a cornfield, my heart pounding as if it were a moment of destiny. But then doubts began to creep in. Natalie came from a farming family, lived in a remote rural area, and was disabled. I knew my family would disapprove. One evening, as we sat by a campfire, she whispered, "Mark, are you sure? Your family, they'll judge you because of me. A girl in a wheelchair from a farming family, I don't want you to suffer." I held her tighter, a surge of determination rising within me. "You're everything to me. I love you for who you are, not your background or anything else. No matter what my family thinks, I choose you." Those words brought tears to her eyes, and we held each other under a starry sky, filled with hope and apprehension. I remember that night back at my hotel, lying awake. My heart raced, thinking about the future. Would my family accept her? Would they mock me again? But deep down, I knew this was my first true love. Natalie made me feel seen, loved unconditionally. We kept meeting, talking on the phone every night. She sent me photos of flowers she grew. I sent her pictures from my travels. Each meeting intensified the thrill. Longer kisses, sweeter whispers. Once I took her on a private picnic. I pushed her wheelchair through a field, stopping by a small lake. We ate homemade sandwiches, laughing together. Suddenly rain fell and we took shelter under a tree. "This is a perfect moment," she said, resting her head on my shoulder. I felt overwhelming happiness, but the fear of my family's judgment lingered. "I'm scared they'll change you," she admitted. I shook my head. "Never. I've been waiting for you my whole life." The project ended, but our love was just beginning. I drove back to Santa Fe, my heart full of anticipation. I hadn't told my family yet, but I knew a real storm was coming. Natalie was my light, and I'd protect it at all costs. I started spending weekends visiting her. The 2-hour drive became familiar. Each visit revealed more about each other. Natalie shared about her accident, a rainy night, a skidding car, and waking up with no feeling in her legs. "I almost gave up," she said, her voice trembling. "But my parents wouldn't let me fall." I told her about family gatherings, the accumulated pain. She listened, comforting me. "You deserve to be loved, Mark." Our love was honest, selfless. I didn't care about the wheelchair. I loved her soul, but Natalie still worried. "Your family will think I'm dragging you down." I reassured her. "They already think I'm a failure. You're my reward." One afternoon, we sat by the creek, hand in hand. Promise me if they disapprove, you won't regret this, she said. My heart tightened. I promise. This is our destiny. The anticipation grew as I thought about introducing her. But for now, this love was everything, making me stronger than ever. After 3 months of being in love, I decided to bring Natalie to meet my family. It was a late autumn evening, when the air in Santa Fe turned crisp and the hills around my parents' house glowed golden in the sunset. I wanted them to see Natalie not just as a girl in a wheelchair, but as the woman who had changed my life. I called my mother beforehand to tell her I was bringing my girlfriend home. Girlfriend? Her voice over the phone was laced with skepticism. Where did you meet her? What does she do? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Her name's Natalie. She lives in the countryside. She's special. You'll like her, Mom. There was a long pause, then her voice turned cold. All right, bring her. But you know how this family is. I hung up, my heart pounding. I knew exactly how this family is. They would judge Natalie through the lens of degrees, backgrounds, and the standards I'd never met. That day, I drove to Natalie's farm, my heart full of anticipation. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair tied up, her radiant smile unable to hide her nervousness. Are you sure, Mark? She asked as I helped her into the truck. They won't like me. I kissed her forehead. Whether they like you or not doesn't matter. I love you, and that's enough. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be easy. The drive from the countryside to Santa Fe felt longer than usual, as if every mile stretched my anxiety taut. Natalie held my hand the whole way, softly singing a folk song to ease the tension. But I could feel it. We were both bracing for a battle. My parents' house sat on a hill, a sprawling villa with an olive garden and windows overlooking the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. As we pulled up, I saw the silhouettes of my parents and my brother Adam at the door. Relatives were there too, uncles, aunts, always ready to judge. I pushed Natalie's wheelchair up the stone path, feeling like I was walking into a courtroom. My mother, in her usual business attire, offered a strained smile. Hello, dear, and this is Natalie, I presume. My father nodded, but his eyes flicked to her wheelchair, then to me, heavy with doubt. Adam stood there, impeccably dressed in a suit with his usual smirk. We entered the living room where the dining table was set with wine and roasted meat. Relatives filled the seats, their chatter lively, but the atmosphere shifted when Natalie was wheeled in. I introduced her. This is Natalie Jameson, my girlfriend. A few curious glances, a few forced smiles. Then my uncle, a renowned engineer, spoke up. Hello, Natalie. What do you do out there in the countryside? His tone carried a hint of mockery, as if countryside was a place unworthy of mention. Natalie smiled, responding gently. I help my parents run the farm, and I'm studying to become a teacher. She spoke with confidence, but I noticed her hands gripping the armrests of her wheelchair. Dinner began, and it quickly turned into a nightmare. My mother asked, What do your parents do, Natalie? I mean, besides farming? The question was a dagger, implying that farming was somehow inferior. Natalie answered, her voice steady. My parents grow corn and raise livestock. They love their work, and I'm proud of them. I looked at her, filled with admiration, but my mother only nodded, her lips pursed. Then Adam chimed in, his tone dripping with sarcasm. A broke freelancer and a girl in a wheelchair. Quite the perfect match, huh, Mark? The table erupted in laughter, as if it were the joke of the year. I felt the blood rush to my face, my heart pounding. Natalie lowered her head, but she still held my hand under the table as if to say, Don't do anything. I tried to hold back, but things only got worse. My father, in his professorial tone, said, Mark, you bring this girl here. Are you trying to drag the whole family into the mud? A freelancer with no career, and now this? He gestured toward Natalie's wheelchair as if she were a defective object. I saw tears well up in Natalie's eyes, but she kept her strained smile. I wanted to scream, to slam the table, but I just gripped her hand tighter, trying to stay calm. Then my aunt, a researcher, added, Mark, you need to think about your future. This girl from a farming family, disabled. You deserve better. Each word was a knife cutting deep into both me and Natalie. What hurt the most was Derek, my best friend, who was there that night. I had invited him hoping for an ally, but Derek just sat there laughing along with the others, then spoke up. Mark, listen to me. You should find someone else. She's not right for you. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. Derek, my friend since high school, who knew how much I'd suffered with my family, was now siding with them. I stared at him, my eyes full of disappointment, but he just shrugged as if I were a fool for loving Natalie. I couldn't take it anymore. Every snide remark, every condescending glance, every fake smile poured fuel on the fire inside me. I shot to my feet, my chair crashing backward. Enough! I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. For the first time, I saw my parents look at me with shock. Who do you think you are? What gives you the right to judge Natalie? She's better than all of you combined. She loves me, believes in me, something none of you have ever done. Natalie grabbed my hand, whispering, Mark, don't. But I couldn't stop. I'm going to marry her, no matter what you think. You don't deserve her, and you don't deserve me. I pushed Natalie's wheelchair away from the table, ignoring the stares and whispers behind us. When we reached the car, Natalie was crying, not loudly, but silent tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, Mark, she whispered. I didn't want you to fight with your family. I knelt in front of her, holding her tightly. No, don't apologize. They're wrong, not you. I love you, and I won't let them hurt you again. But inside, I was in agony. The pain of being scorned by my family, betrayed by my best friend, was suffocating. I drove Natalie home in silence, holding her hand tightly the whole way. That night, I lay on the couch in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, my heart a storm. The image of my family's mocking laughter, Derek's cruel words, and Natalie's tears haunted me. I had promised her, but did I have the strength to face it all? The anticipation made my heart race, as if a new chapter full of challenges and pain was about to unfold. But I knew I wouldn't back down. Natalie was my light, and I would protect her at any cost. A few days later, Natalie called. Her voice was gentle but trembled slightly, as if she were trying to hide the sadness from that horrific evening. Mark, are you free this weekend? She asked. My family's throwing a harvest celebration at the farm. They want to invite you. I hesitated. After what happened with my family, I wasn't sure I was ready to face another crowd. But she continued, They're not like your family. They love each other and they want to meet you. Her words were like a cool stream soothing the wound in my heart. I'll come, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. My heart raced, not just from anxiety, but from a spark of hope. Maybe I'd find something different there. The road to Natalie's farm was no longer unfamiliar. I'd driven through those golden cornfields and shimmering creeks dozens of times, but this time it carried a different meaning. I wasn't just going to see Natalie. I was stepping into her world where she believed I'd be welcomed. As my truck pulled up to the Jamesons' simple wooden house, I saw smoke rising from an outdoor grill and heard folk music echoing through the air. The whole village seemed to be there, suntanned farmers, children running around, and elderly women smiling brightly as they set out homemade bread on tables. The atmosphere was warm and convivial, a stark contrast to the cold formality of my family's living room the other night. Natalie was in the yard, maneuvering her wheelchair through the crowd, chatting animatedly with everyone. When she saw me, she waved, her smile lighting up the scene. "You made it!" she exclaimed, and I felt my heart lighten a little. She wheeled over, grabbed my hand, and pulled me toward her parents. Clifford Jameson was as warm and friendly as ever. He shook my hand firmly like we were old friends. "Good to see you, Mark. Keeping well, son?" he said, his voice deep and kind. Marilyn stepped out with a tray of freshly baked bread and hugged me. "You're too skinny. Eat up," she laughed, setting a plate of grilled meat in front of me. Their warmth felt like a balm after the tense fight with my family. The celebration began, and I felt like I'd stepped into another world. Everyone gathered around long wooden tables outside under the glow of hanging lanterns. Laughter filled the air. Children darted back and forth, and someone played an accordion blending with the melodies of New Mexican folk songs. I watched Natalie, radiant as she told stories to a group of kids, and my heart warmed. Here, no one cared about degrees or titles. They shared food, swapped stories about the harvest, about tough times and simple joys. An old man named Jose, a neighbor of the Jamesons, clapped me on the shoulder. "You're the photographer, right? Next time, snap some shots of my cows. They like being in the spotlight too." The table roared with laughter, and I joined in, for the first time in days without feeling forced. I sat beside Natalie, holding her hand, feeling a peace I'd never known in my own home. She whispered, "See? I told you, they love you for you, nothing more." I nodded, but my heart still weighed heavy as I thought of my family. I confided in her, my voice low. "Yesterday I thought I'd break. They hurt you, and I can't forgive them." Natalie squeezed my hand. "They don't understand you, but I do. And my family, they'll be your family too if you want." Her words brought tears to my eyes, as if part of my pain was being eased. Clifford stood up, raising a glass of homemade wine. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "This year's harvest was bountiful, but the real treasure is having each other, family, friends, and new faces." He looked at me, smiling. "Welcome to our home, Mark." The crowd clapped, and a warmth spread through my chest. I stood, stammering a thank you, unaccustomed to such heartfelt hospitality. Natalie giggled. "You're blushing." The evening passed with music and stories. I helped Clifford grill meat, chatted with Marilyn about her bread making, and even danced an awkward folk dance with Natalie, pushing her wheelchair in circles under the moonlight to the crowd's cheers. For the first time, I felt I belonged somewhere, in a community that didn't judge me for being a freelancer or for anything else. They didn't care that I lacked a PhD or a stable job. They saw me, the real me. But amid the joy, the pain from my family lingered. As the party wound down, Natalie and I sat under the oak tree, gazing at the stars. She asked, "Do you think they'll ever change? Your family?" I shook my head. "I don't know, but I don't want to think about them anymore. Today I saw what a real family is like." She hugged me, and my heart raced with both happiness and anticipation. I knew our love would face many challenges, but here, among these simple people, I found the strength to keep going. That night, I slept at the farm on a small bed in the living room. The sound of wind rustling through the fields, the chirping of crickets, and the smell of hay brought me peace. The next morning, I woke early to help Clifford clean up after the party. He told me about his tough early days as a farmer, starting with nothing but his hands. "But I learned that family is what matters most," he said. "You love Natalie, and that's precious. Don't let anyone shake you." His words were like a confirmation, making me feel more resolute. I looked out at the field, saw Natalie wheeling herself while talking to her mother, and my heart swelled with determination. I wouldn't let my family destroy this happiness. As I left the farm, I felt like a new person. Natalie kissed me goodbye, whispering, "You're my family now." I drove back to Santa Fe, feeling lighter but still anxious. I knew what came next. I wanted to marry Natalie, to build a future with her. But I also knew my family wouldn't accept it easily. That fear made my heart race, but the warmth from Natalie's family gave me strength. On the drive back, I pulled over by a field, grabbed my camera, and took a few shots. The photos didn't just capture the golden cornfield or the fiery sunset. They held the peace that Natalie's family had given me. I thought of Clifford, Marilyn, and the villagers with their genuine smiles. They showed me what family truly means, not degrees or prestige, but love and acceptance. In that moment, I made up my mind. I would propose to Natalie, not to prove anything to my family, but because she was everything I needed. 6 months passed, and Natalie and I created countless memories together. Evenings by the creek, moonlit picnics, and heartfelt handwritten letters we exchanged. I was still freelancing, still wandering with my camera, but now every photo carried a piece of Natalie. Her eyes, her smile, or simply the warmth I felt thinking of her. I saved every penny from my projects, secretly buying a simple silver ring. It wasn't expensive, but I had it engraved with the words, "My destiny." I wanted her to know that to me, she was the entire world. I chose a spring afternoon to propose, right in the cornfield where we first met. I pushed Natalie's wheelchair into the field where a gentle breeze blew and sunlight sparkled. I knelt down, my heart pounding, holding the ring with trembling hands. "Natalie," I said, my voice catching, "you've given me a family, a reason to live true to myself. I can't promise you the world, but I promise to spend my life loving and protecting you. Will you marry me?" Her eyes welled up and she nodded. "Yes, Mark, I will." We hugged, laughing and crying in the middle of the field as if the universe itself was celebrating. From that day, we began planning the wedding. Natalie wanted a simple, unpretentious ceremony at the small church in her village. "Just family and friends, that's enough," she said. I agreed, but my heart grew heavy thinking about inviting my family. I knew they wouldn't accept it easily, but I still wanted to give them a chance. I wrote invitations, carefully choosing each word, and sent them to my parents, relatives, Adam, and even Derek. I hoped, even if just a faint glimmer, that they'd come, that they'd see my happiness and change their minds. But my family's response was as cold as I'd expected. My mother called, her tone indifferent. "We'll see if we can make it. You know how busy I am." My father sent a curt text. "Congratulations, Mark. But think carefully." Adam didn't bother replying, just sent a shrugging emoji. I stared at the message, my heart stinging, but I tried not to let Natalie see. She'd already endured enough hurt from my family, and I didn't want her to worry more. Derek was different. He called, his cheerfulness forced. "I'll be your best man, Mark, but are you sure? Marrying her?" I heard the hesitation in his voice, and it unsettled me. I wanted to believe Derek would support me, but deep down, I sensed something ominous. As the days passed, Natalie and I were busy preparing. She chose a simple white wedding dress, and I picked an old but neatly pressed suit. We wrote our vows together, laughing as we imagined our future. But every night alone, I thought about my family. Would they show up? Would they ever look at me with respect? The anticipation kept me awake, my heart racing like before a battle. I wrote in my journal, "They may not come, but Natalie is everything. I won't let them ruin this day." As the wedding day approached, I drove to the farm to meet Natalie's family. They welcomed me like a son, helping us decorate the church. Clifford handcrafted a wooden floral arch, and Marilyn baked a massive wedding cake. The whole village pitched in, bringing food, lanterns, and smiles. I felt love all around me, but the worry about my family lingered. Natalie noticed and took my hand. "Whether they come or not, you have me and my family." I nodded, but my heart remained heavy. I wanted to believe they'd change, that they'd come and see I'd found true happiness. The night before the wedding, I sat in my apartment thinking about the stack of invitations I'd sent, not a single confirmation from my family. Derek texted, "I'll try to make it tomorrow, super busy, but I'll figure it out." His message didn't reassure me. I called my mother, hoping one last time. The phone rang and went to voicemail. I left a message. "Mom, tomorrow's my wedding. I hope you, Dad, and Adam will be there. I want our family to be together." But as I hung up, I knew that hope was fragile. I looked at Natalie's photo on my desk, my heart racing. I had a bad feeling, but I told myself, Natalie is enough. The wedding day arrived, and the early autumn sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the small village church, casting colorful patterns on the wooden floor. I stood before a mirror in a small room behind the church, adjusting my black tie, feeling my heart pound in my chest. My old suit wasn't expensive, but Natalie had said she loved how I looked simple. I smiled at the memory of her words, but the smile faded as I glanced out the window. where the seats reserved for my family remained empty. I checked my phone again. No messages, no calls. Part of me still clung to hope, but the rest was bracing for pain. The small church gradually filled with Natalie's family and friends, arriving early with fresh flowers, homemade pastries, and radiant smiles. Clifford, Natalie's father, clapped me on the shoulder, his voice warm. "Today's a special day, Mark. You've made my daughter happy." Marilyn hugged me, whispering, "You're a good man, Mark. We're proud to have you." Their words brought tears to my eyes, but I only nodded, not wanting them to see the worry gnawing at me. I glanced at the groom's side of the seating. Still no one. I told myself they might arrive late. Maybe they were just busy. The music began, a gentle piano piece Natalie had chosen. I stood at the altar, hands clasped tightly, trying to stay calm. The church doors opened and everyone turned to look. I held my breath, hoping to see my parents, Adam, or at least Derek, but no. It was only the villagers, Natalie's friends, and sunlight pouring in from outside. My heart sank, but I forced a smile. "Just Natalie," I whispered to myself like a mantra. Then the moment came. Natalie appeared at the end of the aisle in her wheelchair, her simple white wedding dress hugging her frame, her brown hair flowing loosely and her smile as bright as the sun. Clifford pushed her wheelchair and the entire church stood clapping softly. My chest felt like it might burst, with joy for her, for our love, but with pain because the groom's side remained empty. I stole one last glance, hoping for a miracle, but there was no one. No father, no mother, no Adam, not even Derek. The ceremony began and the pastor, a kind elderly man from the village, delivered a heartfelt blessing. I held Natalie's hand, feeling her warmth, and tried to push aside the pain. We exchanged vows, words I'd written from my heart. "Natalie, you are the light that guides me, the family I've chosen. I promise to love and protect you even if the world turns its back." She looked at me, her eyes glistening. "Mark, you've given me the strength to believe in love. I promise to stand by you forever." We exchanged rings, and when I kissed her, the church erupted in applause. In that moment, I thought I could forget everything. My family, Derek, all of it. It was just me and Natalie. But as the reception began in the church's backyard, the pain returned like a wave. I checked my phone, calling my mother, then my father, then Adam. No one answered. I stood alone in a corner of the yard, watching everyone laugh, eat, and dance. Natalie was busy chatting with friends, but she glanced at me, her eyes worried. I forced a smile, not wanting her to worry. Then my phone buzzed, a video call from Adam. I answered, my heart racing, hoping for a belated congratulations. But what I saw made my heart stop. Through the screen, I saw my entire family, my parents, Adam, aunts, uncles, relatives, gathered in the dining room of my parents' Santa Fe house. The table was laden with food, wine, and their laughter echoed. Adam raised a glass, grinning. "Hey, Mark, congrats from afar. We're celebrating here, but we figured there was no need to show up. A village wedding with that kind of bride? Awkward." The table burst into laughter as if it were a brilliant joke. I saw my mother nod, my father shrug, and then, what froze me? Derek was there, sitting next to Adam, laughing along as if he'd never promised to be my best man. My blood rushed to my face, my hands trembling so much I nearly dropped the phone. "You," I stammered, my voice choking. "You think this is a joke? It's my wedding day." Adam smirked. "Come on, Mark. You chose this path, we're just respecting it. This wedding, it's not for our family, you get it." Derek chimed in. "Mark, I told you to rethink it, but hey, have fun." The table laughed again, and I heard someone say, "A freelancer marrying a girl in a wheelchair, what a comedy." I hung up, feeling like the world had collapsed. The pain of being abandoned by my family, betrayed by my best friend, stabbed through my heart like a knife. I stood there in the reception yard, hearing the music and laughter, but feeling like I was sinking into a black hole. I wanted to scream, to drive to Santa Fe and confront them, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. The laughter from the crowd mingled with the accordion's notes, but to me, it felt like echoes from a distant world. I looked down at my hands, still clutching the phone as if it were the final proof of the betrayal I'd just witnessed. My family, my father, mother, Adam, and even Derek had chosen to turn their backs, to mock the most important day of my life. My chest felt crushed, each breath a struggle. Natalie was somewhere in the crowd, but I couldn't bring myself to look at her. I was afraid she'd see me. A failure, a man not even acknowledged by his own family. I stumbled toward the small altar in the yard where we'd just exchanged our vows. Lanterns hung overhead, their warm golden light illuminating the flowers Marilyn had meticulously arranged. But all that beauty couldn't quell the storm inside me. I sank into a chair, head bowed, hands covering my face. The image of my family laughing in the lavish dining room in Santa Fe replayed like a horrific film I couldn't stop. "Congrats from afar," Adam had said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. And Derek, the friend I'd confided in for years, sat there laughing along as if our friendship meant nothing. I felt like a castaway on a deserted island, unwanted and unneeded. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe just minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. The music stopped and an unusual silence fell. I looked up thinking the reception was over, but then I heard clapping, soft at first, then erupting into a thunderous ovation. The crowd began cheering, children giggling, adults shouting. I turned around, my heart pounding, unsure what was happening. And then I saw her, Natalie, my wife, the woman I'd just vowed to love forever. She wasn't in her wheelchair. Natalie stood at the end of the flower-lined path in her pristine white wedding dress, taking slow, steady steps toward me. Her legs moved firmly as if there had never been an accident, never a wheelchair. I froze, mouth agape, my brain unable to process it. This couldn't be real. I blinked, thinking I was dreaming, but she was still there, coming closer, her radiant smile lighting up her face, her green eyes sparkling. The entire yard cheered, as if they'd known this moment was coming, as if it were a secret I alone hadn't been told. Clifford's voice boomed, "Go, my girl, make us proud." Marilyn wiped tears, beaming. But I just stood there, frozen, unable to believe my eyes. Natalie reached me, took my hands, and I felt her warmth, so real it made me tremble. "Mark," she whispered, her voice gentle but strong. "No more sorrow. Everything comes at a price." I looked into her eyes, searching for words, but could only stammer, "Natalie, how are you?" She smiled, pulling me to a nearby chair, and the crowd fell silent, waiting for the story she was about to tell. She began, her voice soft but clear, as if she'd prepared for this moment for a long time. "Mark, I'm sorry for keeping this from you, but I needed to be sure. My father needed to be sure." She glanced at Clifford, who stood nearby, nodding encouragingly. "My father isn't just a farmer. He's Clifford Jameson, a millionaire agricultural tycoon who owns hundreds of acres and a farming empire in New Mexico. But he chooses to live simply, close to the people, because he came from nothing and was once looked down upon." My heart pounded harder, as if the world had turned upside down. Clifford, the tall, weathered farmer with calloused hands. A millionaire? I looked at him, seeing his proud smile. Natalie continued, "A few months ago, I successfully regained the use of my legs. Doctors in Albuquerque helped me walk again, but my father asked me to stay in the wheelchair when I was with you. Not to deceive you, but because he wanted to test your heart. He needed to know you loved me for who I am, not for money or anything else." I listened, dazed, as if lost in a fog. Natalie stood, gripping my hands tighter. "You passed the test, Mark. You loved me when I was in a wheelchair, when I was just a farmer's daughter from a poor family. You stood up for me against your family, even when they belittled us both. You're the honest man my father was looking for." She turned to Clifford, who stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're a fine son-in-law, Mark," he said, his voice warm. "I was once scorned by the world, so I didn't want my daughter to end up with someone who only sees the surface. You proved I was right to trust you." I sat there, my mind reeling. The pain from my family still lingered, but Natalie's words, Clifford's words, were like a beam of light piercing the darkness. I looked at her, the woman now standing before me, strong and radiant. You can walk," I mumbled, still in disbelief. She laughed, pulling me to my feet. "Yes, and I'll walk beside you for the rest of our lives." The crowd erupted again, cheers and applause filling the air. Before I could react, a group of village youths rushed over, hoisting Natalie and me into the air, tossing us up like a legendary bride and groom. Natalie laughed loudly, clutching my hand, and I laughed too for the first time that day, feeling my heart set free. The reception roared back to life as if no crisis had occurred. Music swelled, people danced, children ran around, and lanterns glowed under the night sky. I watched Natalie now dancing with me, truly dancing with light, graceful steps, and I felt like I was living in a dream. She pulled me into a folk dance, and I followed clumsily, laughing until my cheeks hurt. "You're not mad at me, are you?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. I shook my head, pulling her into an embrace. "How could I be? You're my miracle." The celebration stretched late into the night, and I felt the overwhelming love from Natalie's family and the entire village. They didn't just welcome me, they embraced me as one of their own. Clifford shared more about his journey from a poor boy to a successful entrepreneur who kept a humble heart. Marilyn brought out a fresh tray of bread, insisting I eat more. "A son-in-law needs strength to take care of my daughter." I laughed, feeling like I'd found a true home. That night, as the party wound down, Natalie and I sat on a bench in the yard, gazing at the stars. She told me more about her recovery, the painful days in the hospital, and her dream of walking to dance at our wedding. "I wanted today to be a gift for you," she said, "a surprise to show you that anything is possible." I kissed her, feeling the pain dissolve. "You're the greatest gift," I said, and we laughed, holding each other under the moonlight. I knew our story wasn't over. My family might return, or they might stay distant forever. But now, with Natalie by my side, with the truth about her and her family, I felt stronger than ever. I had passed Clifford's test, and I would keep facing every challenge ahead. Our love was real, and nothing could break it. After the wedding, life with Natalie felt like turning to a new, vibrant page filled with hope. We moved into a small house on the outskirts of Albuquerque, a wedding gift from Clifford. It wasn't a lavish mansion, but it was cozy, with a garden full of flowers and a corner for my camera equipment. Natalie began teaching at a local elementary school, inspiring children with stories of art and resilience. I continued freelancing, but with the support of Natalie's family, I landed bigger projects, from travel photography books to solo exhibitions in Santa Fe. Our life was not only filled with love, but also prosperous, free from the days of instant noodles and bill worries. Our story somehow spread far and wide. A local journalist wrote about our wedding, about the love story of a freelance photographer and a woman thought to be disabled who stood up on her wedding day. The article called us New Mexico's fairy tale romance, and soon larger outlets picked it up. The stories praised my genuine love, Natalie's strength, and the simplicity of her family. I remember the first time we read the article, sitting on the couch giggling as we saw our photo on the front page. But that spotlight also brought other waves. The story of my family, how they turned their backs on my wedding day, their cruel mockery, somehow leaked out. Maybe it was a Santa Fe acquaintance or a friend of Natalie's who overheard that video call. Whatever the source, the internet erupted. Posts began appearing on social media condemning my family. "A prestigious professor who disowns his son for being a freelancer," one person wrote. "The Burns family abandoned their son's wedding because the bride was a farmer? Shameful," another commented. Hashtags like Mark and Natalie and Justice for Mark spread rapidly, accompanied by stories of my family's arrogance. In Santa Fe, the local community turned against them. I heard my mother was no longer invited to the charity events she once led. My father faced questions from students about how he treated me. Adam, always proud of his lawyer reputation, lost clients who didn't want to work with someone who disrespects family. Even Derek, my former best friend, wasn't spared. A post detailed how he sided with my family and his company started receiving negative reviews. I didn't know exactly who was behind those posts, but I suspected it was the natural outrage of those who heard the story. People who saw the injustice in how I was treated. At first, I didn't pay much attention. I was busy living my new life with Natalie, busy photographing, busy loving her. But one afternoon, as I edited photos in my study, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. I hesitated, my heart racing, but answered. "Mark," her voice trembled, no longer cold. "Are you okay? We need to talk." I stayed silent, waiting. She continued, "People are talking about the family online. They're attacking us, and your brother. I can't take it anymore. Can you say something to make them stop?" I felt blood rush to my face, not from anger, but from the rekindled pain. "Mom," I said, my voice calm but firm, "when I needed my family, you, Dad, and Adam chose to abandon me. You mocked me, mocked Natalie on my wedding day. Now you want me to save the family's reputation?" She choked up, and I heard soft sobs through the phone. "Mark, I'm sorry. I didn't know it would come to this." But I shook my head, though she couldn't see. "There's nothing left to say, Mom. You chose your path. Now deal with the consequences." I hung up, my hands trembling. Natalie walked in, now moving freely, and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Was that your mom?" she asked. I nodded, recounting the call. She hugged me, whispering, "You did the right thing. They need to take responsibility for what they did." I nodded, but my heart remained heavy. I didn't want revenge, but I couldn't forgive easily either. They had hurt me, hurt Natalie, and now they faced the repercussions. A few days later, Adam showed up at our doorstep. I opened the door to find him standing there, no longer smug. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes shadowed. "Mark," he said, his voice hoarse, "I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I just wanted the family to be proud." I stared at him, feeling like I was looking at a stranger. "Proud?" I asked. "Proud by abandoning me on my wedding day? By mocking my wife?" He lowered his head, silent. "What do you want, Adam?" He mumbled. "I want to make things right. The family's being torn apart online. Help me, Mark. Say something to stop it." I gave a bitter laugh, devoid of joy. "When I needed you, you sat there laughing with the others. Now you want me to save you? No, Adam. I gave you a chance and you threw it away." I closed the door, cutting him off. Turning back, I saw Natalie at the kitchen doorway, looking at me with love in her eyes. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, though my heart still ached. "I'm fine. I just don't want them to hurt you anymore." In the weeks that followed, my father called, then Derek. Each apologized, each begged me to speak out to save their reputations. But I refused them all. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I needed to protect my happiness, Natalie's happiness. My family was drowning in regret, but for me it was too late. They had their chance and they chose to turn away. I no longer had room for them in my heart. Meanwhile, life with Natalie grew brighter. We traveled together and I photographed her among fields of flowers and on California beaches. She laughed, danced, and I realized this was true happiness, not fame or wealth, but the feeling of being wholly loved. The press still wrote about us occasionally, and each time I saw the headline "Fairy Tale Romance," I smiled. Natalie teased. "See, we're famous," I replied. "Famous or not, you're all I need." One evening, as we sat in the garden watching the stars, Natalie took my hand. "Do you regret it, cutting off your family?" I shook my head. "No, they chose their path and I chose you. It's the best decision I've ever made." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder, and I felt my heart overflow. My family might remain distant forever, but I had found my true family, Natalie, Clifford, Marilyn, and the village that welcomed me as their own. I knew somewhere in Santa Fe my parents and Adam were grappling with the criticism. Derek was likely scrambling to salvage his reputation. But to me, they were now just a faint shadow in my memory. I didn't need them anymore. I had Natalie, love, and a life worth living. That night I sat writing in my journal. I wrote about Natalie's smile, how she danced in the kitchen despite once being unable to walk. I wrote about my new family, Clifford, Maryland, and the village that embraced me as a son. And I wrote about my old family, now just a dim echo in my past. Some doors once closed never reopen. I wrote, I found my true family and I'll never let it go.